In terms of my spiritual elevation, we actually have to elevate ourselves from our conditioned state. And the Bhagavad-Gita has been mercifully presented by Krishna and Srila Prabhupada for that purpose. As long as we are embodied, we have to understand we're encaged and we're subject to continuing birth and death. So unless we avail of this information and we try to elevate ourselves through the practices and the philosophical precepts, we have to remain in this state of repeated birth and death. Not a very promising option. So you have a number here. This was quite extensive. Again, not to overwhelm you, but I went through all of the purports and I selected wherever Prabhupada said a Krishna conscious person does this. A Krishna conscious person does this. And because this 5th chapter is dealing with the subtle body more than the gross, it's a very internal level, very elevated, nice karma yoga, but still in the physical sphere, acting. So I didn't leave out anything. And whether it just seemed simple or relatively not as important, I put it in. And what we also have is the rating scale of 1 to 5. So you can go through this and you can see, well, how do I do in this? Do I not feel the pangs of material misery? 1 to 5? 1 means I never do. 5 means I always do. So it gives us what shall I say, an opportunity to evaluate. And we'll see evaluation is critical in spiritual life. Otherwise, the tendency is to think we're doing well. But that's dangerous. Because you have to know against what standard. And Prabhupada has given us, and Krishna has given us the standard that is the prerequisite for entering the kingdom of God. Not a cheap thing. Scripture references are also presented and where you will find them quoted. And a little numerical inventory chart. Again, it lists the key verses. And at the end, you'll see here the chapter number and the number of slokas, how often Krishna speaks, how often Arjuna speaks, 1 key memory verse, 11 key thematic verses, 3 verse analogies, and I found 9 purport analogies, okay? Then after that, you'll get charts. Now these charts are also slides, but these are the stage of what we call sequential flow. We have taken for each sloka a particular word that may be the essence, or perhaps the word is just unique or easy to depict by imagery, either from a picture or in your mind. And that should help you begin your recall of the rest of the philosophical aspect of that sloka. So this is called a walkthrough section. You walk through by the memory link words. So you see those in your little study bank as well. Okay? So there were 4 sections, but I needed 5 charts for that because the last section was too large for just 1 slide. And before that, the slide at the top gives us the 4 divisions of this 5th chapter. Now again, if we think of this in terms of how did we progress in school, let's just compare this to math. Almost everybody here had to take math, right? I mean, you may not have had to take Sanskrit, you may not have had to take German, right? But everybody had to have some preliminary math in life. Language and math are prerequisites to life. So in math, each level, again, proceeds systematically, and there will be units. Let's just say we're in grade 5, right? Chapter 5, grade 5. If you do each unit, it also progresses to the next unit. You understand the point? So we are going to now try to help you see how each of these topics is a prerequisite to the next one. Does that everybody follow that? Because you can't, especially in mathematics, there is no way out. You cannot proceed to a higher level with insufficient knowledge. And that's true in spiritual life. So that is why we are going to such an extent here to try to show you the sections, the levels, and the attainment. It's not meant to be judgmental. Krishna is kind. Whatever the level, your entry level, your eligibility, Krishna is there to help you. But it's imperative for us to take responsibility for that and assess where are we, right? And we'll be looking at the different chapters to show what is the level of attainment for chapter 1. What's the level of attainment for chapter 2? And now we're up to 5. It's getting pretty, what shall we say, elevated by now. Okay. On the back, I used to do these, and I find them now almost too complicated for most people, but we're just giving you, and this is the last one I had done actually until chapter 13. This is chapter 5. It's in a mind map form, and we've reduced it. We used to give the big handouts, but now I'm more dependent on slides because they're colorful, and if people like to save them, we can share them through, pen drives or hard drives. But it's easier, I think, to see this way now, and people are more accustomed to this now. They have video, they have smartphones and computers, and even in the lobby in the guest house, I see big screens. So everybody's conditioned now at this stage of Kali Yuga to see everything large on screens. So we are trying to take advantage of that facility and also relate to the audience. That's one aspect of Krishna consciousness. Preaching means I have to know how I can relate to people so they can benefit. We're here to benefit people, not impress them. Try to give them whatever they need to know in a learner-friendly way. Okay, so everybody understand this now? I hope no one finds it threatening, like too much, right? But again, it's a resource for you to use. And if you like, sometimes going through slokas, you can test yourself with the question section. Do I know what question Arjuna asks in the first verse? Okay? And you can keep that by your book when you're reading. And that way the question will inspire you to think a little bit about the sloka. What is the answer to this question? All right? So now we are ready to begin. We'll go back. Let's take a look at the cover a little bit in depth because it's particularly sweet. And I want to share a little bit of a realization about it before we go into our thing. This is a famous painting about the sage who sees with equal vision. And it has been explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur that in this, the sage, he sees the full spectrum of the material energy. He sees the gentle Brahmana, who's at the top, and he sees the outcast, who's at the bottom, right? But he sees them equally. Now that's not easy to do unless you're on the spiritual platform, right? And in terms of the animals, species, he sees the cow, he sees the elephant, and he sees the dog, right? The cow represents goodness, the elephant represents passion, and the dog represents ignorance. So now, whether it's by caste or by species, Krishna has explained the full spectrum. One must come to a spiritual platform to see equally. As long as we're in the conditional stage, still in the modes, we tend to judge by externals. And that in spiritual life, unfortunately, leads to sectarianism. Oh, that's a woman. Or that may be an American Vaishnav, which actually starts to border into offensiveness. Or maybe this person has that guru, and this person has that guru, and therefore I differentiate. So it's a very, very important principle to start to see people on the Paramatma level. And the benefit of seeing that way is you're increasingly freed of reaction. The higher you go, the less you suffer. The less you suffer. Makes sense, right? The more, I mean, have you been in airplanes before? I've been in an airplane that was in turbulence, and it was just bouncing like anything, and everybody was just in the cabin terrified, and unison the people said, but the pilot was up front, he couldn't hear, they said, "Take it higher." They all said it together. You know, at 35,000 feet, you get above the turbulence. So spiritual life means to elevate above the turbulence of the three modes. That's always there. If you sit in the turbulence and try to adjust it, you're getting nowhere. So spiritual life means elevate to the transcendental position. Get above the turbulence of the three modes. So this is why it's important to try to, if we can't do it from the realistic point of view, at least philosophically. If you see someone say, super soul is in his heart, I should treat him that way. Right? It's a good meditation. But a person who's elevated, he naturally sees like that. He will not make distinction. Okay? Now, let us go into our objectives. Our ones, we have those slides. We'll go into the instructional objectives. So you see, before we start a session, we like to give people some skills, because skills are built in educational theory now. It's not enough just to present material. They give the participants some skills so they do better. Okay, so now we're going to go to, no, first we'll go to, well, we know we're in the Bhagavad-Gita, right? So the first thing is know where we are. We know that. Now the first principle is that when you're studying an overview, you're trying to put together many pieces that may not look connected. So the first thing is, how do I do that? Okay, so we have 29 pieces, and we're going to look at them from three perspectives. These are standard principles. We look at them from the sky, the overview of all 29. We do the breakdowns of all 29 in 4 parts, and then tomorrow we'll go into the purports. So that way you see the 3 dimensions of understanding. Okay? These are the 3 perspectives of study. Overview, breakdown, underview. And all of them, each of them is important. Each of them has its advantages, each of them has its disadvantages. The picture is complete when you've done all 3. Okay, the next slide. Always start with the big picture. Okay? If you start with the details, you can't quite see the whole thing. The next principle is to build a strong foundation. So that's what this little study guide is meant to help you do. We spend a lot of time on a strong foundation. In math, in English, any language, if you're weak in the foundation, you cannot proceed very well, any more than an architect can build a very strong and high building on a weak foundation. So we want to help you master the minimum here. Get the structure in place, and then all the parts fit in nicely. Okay, the next principle is the walk through the book principle. If you feel I'll never get through the Bhagavad-Gita, that's why we do these memory link words. So you get through the chapter at least on one level, and you know the walkthrough. This is very important principle in education. Many people who study Bhagavad-Gita get stuck at the 2nd chapter, and they think they'll never see chapter 18. And the same thing happens in the Bhagavatam. They think they'll never even open it. So we don't want to fall into that sand trap, okay? So that was why we do those little circles. Every one of these activities has an important role to play in our understanding of what Krishna is trying to give us. Okay, next. And this is our background information. We want to know now what has preceded before chapter 5. Where are we philosophically? In the first chapter, Arjuna has doubts, perplexities. That is the adhikar for being a human being. If I don't know I need help, if I don't think I'm suffering, it's pretty much animal life. Okay? The second chapter, he actually has to seek higher, superior help. So he's taking help from the Lord. You can't do better than that. And he accepts him as a guru. So one has to be able to come to that platform and say, I'm suffering, but I know I need help and I need spiritual help. My material answers don't seem to help me. And they can't. Every material solution carries a problem. It's just shifting the burden, that's all. So until you come to the spiritual platform, you will have to suffer. The third stage of the adhikar is that, well, first of all, the guru gives you the outline of what it is you will need to know. And he does that in chapter 2. The outline of the whole Gita is presented. In the third chapter, we're now beginning a detail of the first instruction, which is worship Vishnu, karma yoga. If you work in this world, you'll be bound unless your work is offered as a sacrifice to Vishnu. You're already bound up, you'll continue to be bound up unless you start sacrificing your activities for the pleasure of Vishnu. If you do that, it raises you to the fourth level. It raises you to the level of knowledge. That is the fruit of sacrifice from karma. Karma brings knowledge. Karma yoga brings knowledge. And if that knowledge is coming in the disciplic succession, it will bring you to a bona fide spiritual master who can link you to the source, which is Krishna. Okay? So do you see the background now? Eligibility. We have come from, we're suffering, we seek help. I realize I'm entrapped. If I don't start acting for the pleasure of Vishnu, I will continue to be. The fruit of that realization is transcendental knowledge, which liberates me. And now we are in the 5th chapter. We have received transcendental knowledge, which liberates. Now, on that platform, we're going to act with the body, but we're now going to renounce the actions of the mind. Very elevated. Not just the results of the physical activity, but the actions of the mind, because the mind also acts, and it's binding. It's actually so binding that it will take you to many, many more bodies. Okay? You all follow that now? Okay. Now here, this is the progression, again, very simply for you. Realization levels. Number 1, I have doubts that I cannot resolve. Number 2, I seek help, a guru. Even materially, people know this. Number 3, he tells me I must worship Vishnu to become freed of reaction. Number 4, the fruit of that activity is transcendental knowledge. And the fruit of that chapter is liberation. So in chapter 5, now I'm acting on the liberated platform, and I realize myself, and then I realize with further knowledge, super soul, and that takes me to meditation, Ashtanga Yoga in the 6th chapter. You ever follow that? Everybody clear? Does that help you? Yes. These are eligibility. And you have to see where we are, because we are, if you have a body, it's a testimonial that you are encaged. You're actually a soul, and you're covered. You have 2 coverings, subtle and gross. The gross is easily detected. The subtle, harder, but you can look at people's faces and you can tell. They say the face is the index of the mind. Are they influenced by the modes of ignorance? Are they influenced by passion? Or are they influenced by goodness? You can tell. Again, not to be judgmental, but just to understand the modes have an effect. They're there, but their effect is visible even though we cannot see them. We cannot see the modes, but we can see their effect. It's just like a disease. You may have typhoid. You will certainly see its effects, right? So the modes are contaminating. You come in contact with them, you get a disease. The particular body we have is an admixture of various diseases. It's a diseased state of consciousness. The cure is Bhagavad-Gita. The body is nothing to be proud of. As Prabhupada says, make the best use of a bad bargain. Okay. So we want to come out of the disease stage. And as long as we still misidentify with the body as being the self, it's understood we're conditioned. There's work to do. Okay, everybody on board with that? Okay. All right. Now, this is a very important section. This is the yoga ladder. If you can look at the bottom, most people in the world are leading, in the human body, animal life. Can you appreciate that? They're not even following any authorized scripture. Many don't even believe in an authorized scripture if they know of it, right? And most likely, in the next body, they may descend. If the consciousness is in the animal level, then the danger is one will descend. Nature will give you a form that corresponds with your consciousness. Very terrifying. That's why we have to elevate the consciousness, because the consciousness is what produces the form. Very scary, isn't it? So but to go higher, you see karma kanda. Can you all see it all right? Karma kanda means human life, but I'm starting to act by the authority of the Vedas, but I want the results. But I'm not connected in yoga with the Supreme. But I'm accepting some authority. Okay? Now, when you see the dotted line, from the dotted line to the dotted line, you see those two sections? That section represents the three modes. And I'm still acting in those, but I'm elevating. So if I start to elevate with my body, the actions of my body, it's called karma what? Karma yoga. I'm sacrificing the actions of the body. I'm linking it to the transcendental position. I have a transcendental objective. That's called yoga, linking. Higher still is what? Gyan yoga. Now the subtle body. That's this chapter. The subtle body has to connect with the Supreme. The subtle body is the mind, intelligence, false ego. It acts and it binds. And it's creating our bodies repeatedly. So unless that subtle body is being offered according to Shastra, it's just going to keep the living entity encaged repeatedly. From Jnana Yoga, you have two paths. You can go directly to Brahman, or you can keep going to Astanga, which is what the Bhagavad-Gita presents. The 6th chapter takes you to Astanga Yoga. If Astanga Yoga is practiced properly, in the 6th chapter, which is the next one, it will take you to realization of Paramatma. Okay, can you see that? Now that realization, both Brahman and Paramatma are past the dotted line. What does that mean? They're transcendental. Okay? They're transcendental. And from Paramatma, the next stage to keep on going would be to initiate bhakti. You have to encounter a devotee to do that. That's why the devotees have to be merciful. Only coming in contact with a devotee will take you into bhakti. So from bhakti, one continues to advance, and the stages, again, if you read Nectar of Devotion, oh my God, it's very elevated. It's not a cheap thing. But Burjan writes in the right side there, he says that if one surrenders fully to Krishna, that means fully, at any stage he can immediately go to the top. But generally it's a gradual progression, even in the terms of bhakti. Usually devotees are advised to act with their body and their minds in ISKCON Karma Yoga, which is chapter 5. So here we'll be given the outline of what should be our thinking. How should I understand? How should I see? How should I understand? And how should I act? Even if it's theoretical, we have to start somewhere. When it's realized, you're free. Is everybody clear so far? Does anybody have any difficulty? Okay? Everybody okay? Okay, so now we're ready for the special slides. These are new slides. we're going to see a triangle here, a pyramid, and this is called levels of thinking. This is very applicable. It's coming from educational field, and it's even seen in the Bhakti Shastri study guide. The people who did the study guide know this. It's called Bloom's taxonomy. What's it called? Bloom's taxonomy. You can think Bloom, okay? And it talks about levels of thinking. And you'll see how if you understand this, how can I understand the Shastra? The first level at the bottom is knowledge. I have to have information. Right? I have to have information. I cannot proceed without it. And I have to get it from an outside source. So Krishna gives us, what's he giving us? He's giving us the knowledge. It takes more intelligence to do what? Comprehend it, understand it. Many philosophers in India have read the Bhagavad-Gita and they came up with the wrong understanding. By good fortune, Srila Prabhupada has given us the proper understanding of Bhagavad-Gita. It's not enough to have the slokas there. You have to understand them. Then when I understand them, then what am I able to do? I'm able to do what? Apply the knowledge. What is the point of knowledge if it's not applied? It's useless. Knowledge has to be applied. So we go from theory to practice, right? Practical, personal application and preaching application. Those first three are considered low-level thinking, lower level. My God. What could be more? Higher order thinking. This takes more intelligence. And we've tried to provide that for you in this. That's why this is what it is. The first is what? Analysis. Take things apart so I can understand the parts. What's what we're doing right now? We're breaking the topics down. That's called analytical thinking. The minute you have a problem, you have to break it down to try to solve it. The next stage is higher, synthesis. I have the parts. I can try to put them together in a new way, like a cook. The cook may have tomatoes and cabbage and cauliflower, but each time the combination may be different. That is called synthetic thinking. Beyond that is evaluation. So then you have been given these sections with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, where you're able now to assess the standard and your position in relationship to the standard. Is everybody okay with that? Do you see how valuable this is in spiritual life? And you'll find this in the study guide. They'll have the knowledge questions, they'll have the evaluation questions, they'll have the understanding questions, they'll have the application questions, analysis, it's all there. So this has been around for many years, but we're trying to help you now understand the importance of this. If you hear information in chapter 5, number 1, I know it. Number 2, do I understand it? This is a heavy chapter, it's very difficult. 3, can I apply this? Number 4, can I analyze what Krishna's saying, right? And synthesize it. This is what we're trying to do, put the slides and this all together to make a package for you that's different, a little bit different. It's not the end of the, it's the end all be all, but it's at least as a way, it's an approach. And finally, evaluation is so important. Ultimately, we fly our own airplane. We have bodies according to our previous actions. We suffer and enjoy according to our previous actions. We will continue to experience what we do. The present body is the result of previous actions, and the present actions are creating the future body, be it spiritual or spiritual. No one can be blamed. Krishna, your mommy, your daddy, or your neighbor. Every person has to take responsibility for his own airplane. On the ground, the crew can help you make sure the fuel is fine and everything's checked and the propellers are working. But up in the air, you're on your own. And when death comes, that's the final test. So we're trying to help each other prepare for that. Everybody understand those points now? Helpful? We spend a little time on this, but if you have the philosophical concept, then things just make more sense. Okay? Now, we'll see the slides to help you. Number 1, knowledge. This is level 1. Okay? And this was Bloom's taxonomy. Number 2 is what? Comprehension. The light. Ding dong. I get it. Right? That moment. Yes, I see. I understand. Number 3, application. I can use it. Next time I see somebody who said something not so nice to me, I'll say, Paramatma, it's okay. Number 4, the clock. Take it all apart. Know the parts. Number 5, synthesis. The doctor. He has a special prescription for every patient. Here's an Ayurvedic doctor, right? He doesn't administer the same thing to every patient. That takes intelligence. So a good preacher will do that too. He'll have to know his audience. Krishna never speaks beyond the level of his audience. He comes in special incarnations to help the person, not to bewilder him further. Number 6, evaluation. What's the model? Where am I? Here, 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 or here. And I should know that the goal is the top. I should not be content to stay on a lower level. Everybody okay so far? Okay, let us now go into our first breakdown. As we told you, we had the overview. And now let's see, not key verses, breakdown. Do we have the breakdown slide? Topics. It's called topics of I. There you go. All right. So we always start with the chapter. You always go back and reference where you are. We're in the 5th chapter, 29 slokas. Next. This is a chart you have in your little pamphlet. We have 4 topics here. And they're progressive. So in your chapter, you can start to fill this out, okay? On the chapter title 1, you have a pen also. You can write the title. You can put abbreviation if you want. So I'll use my tablet and we'll start filling out a little bit. This will give us a varied activity. Okay, I'll try to turn this around so everybody can see. All right? So we know we're in the Bhagavad-Gita, right? And we're now in the 5th chapter. And when I always do this, I always write immediately the size. So we say 5:29. Okay? And we know the title. It's called Karma Yoga. So you can put KY. You can use abbreviations. They do this in chemistry. It's intelligent. ISKCON is an abbreviation, right? ISKCON. KY. And it's going to be action. You can make symbols in what? KC. Krishna consciousness. Don't be afraid to use cartoons and symbols. It's more fun. You remember things if there's a little bit of humor to it, right? Karma Yoga, action, what? But in Krishna consciousness. Now you're acting on a higher level than just chapter 3. It's called Karma Yoga, but now I have increased knowledge. So a 5th grader is expected to do more than the 3rd grader, okay? So you're more expected this time. And what section I am? You'll see here. You'll see the section. The size you've put 29. The section is what? Karma Yoga. The first 6 chapters are what? Karma Yoga. So you can fill that in on your paper. Do you all have that? You can write it in. Did you get a paper? Oh, he's a serious student too. How did we miss him? Don't be afraid to raise your hand. You know, in a class, I saw you there sitting there, and I thought, well, maybe he's tired. Okay. Yeah, we have plenty of study banks, and they're there for your benefit. Okay, so the section is the first 6 chapters, Karma Yoga. And the chapter title is Karma Yoga, but Action in Krishna Consciousness. And it's 29 slokas. So everybody got that now? If somebody asked you, what would you say? What's the chapter title? Action in Krishna. And how big is it? 29 slokas. What section are we in? Karma Yoga. Very good. Now we're going to move up one level on the ladder. Ready? We're going to talk about the 4 topics. So we're going to put codes in. All right? Ready? The first section, Karma Yoga, remember, let's put your abbreviations, is equal to, what is it? Equal to, but it's better. It's equal to, but it's better than renouncing work. Okay? Can you all write that in your little thing? Karma Yoga is what? Equal to, but it's better. And we're going to find out why. Krishna will make his opinion, but he always backs it up. It's equal to, but it's better than renouncing work. Actually, no place in the Gita does Krishna tell Arjuna not to fight. No way. No matter, he covers all the bases. But at each time he's fighting on a different level, higher and higher level. Because Krishna consciousness means to elevate the consciousness. Our actions may look like even the materialist actions, but the result depends on the consciousness. The result we get depends on the consciousness. And what's the highest consciousness? Consciousness of Krishna. That's the highest one. Always conscious of Krishna. Okay, so everybody got the first topic? And how big is it? 6 slokas. Okay? So now you're becoming clear now. You've broken up the piece of cake into 4 sections. Karma Yoga is equal to but better than renouncing work, and 6 slokas will be dealing with that. And from beginning to end, there's a progression that will take us to topic 2. I can't go to the next unit until I did the first. Okay, next unit is 3 question marks and Karma Yoga. So it's natural, if something's better, I want to do that. But then how do I do it? Right? So this topic is, well, how do I perform it now? You're telling me this is better, now tell me how I should do it. Okay? So how many slokas will tell us how to do it? 6 slokas will tell us how to perform Karma Yoga on a higher level. Okay? 6, 6. Now if you do that properly, it takes you to another level. Let's look at the 3rd level. Now we're getting really elevated. We have an R with brackets. The R stands for relationship. What does it stand for? Relationship of 3 things. This is critical. We are going to find out what is the relationship between the soul, super soul, not Superman, super soul. We've made it big because he's big, a lot bigger than we are. We'll never be equal to super soul. And what? Nature. Critical. This is the essence of this chapter. One who doesn't know this thinks he's the doer. One who knows this, he's liberated if he acts on this platform. I'm not doing anything. Nature's carrying everything out. And the minute you accept that and you live by that, you're freed of more reaction. There's a benefit to higher knowledge. It's not just, oh, it's okay, it's all right, but I'm not interested. No. We're trying to get ourselves out of engagement. It's essential, or we're going to stay in this kind of trap. Okay? So relationship between soul, super soul, and nature. How many slokas there? 4. And you'll see this echoed in chapter 13, which is the beginning of the Gyan section. And you'll also see it echoed in the 18th chapter, the second part, Gyan Yoga. This is Jnana Yoga. Sure. This is Gyan. I'm acting on a higher level now, knowledge. Okay, now our last section. We have some stars. and some stars around an L. And the L stands for liberation. We want to be liberated from the modes. Right now we're under the clutches of the modes still. And how do we do that? By focusing on who? Now we've been introduced to what? Super Soul in the third section. Now if I know how important Super Soul is, what should I do? I should focus on him. He's doing practically everything. My digestion, my perception, my metabolism. In the morning, he reminds me of what I am and what I'm supposed to do. He gives me intelligence. He gives me forgetfulness. He gives me knowledge, Vedic knowledge, and I don't even acknowledge him. But the minute I do, I focus on him, and it's the source of happiness and liberation. See how important that is? Think of Super Soul. I focus on him, and the result of that will be meditation on Super Soul, and that'll take us into chapter what? What's the next chapter? Dhyan Yoga, meditation on the Super Soul. And that's progressive. If you meditate on Super Soul, you come to Krishna. You see the point? You got the sections now. Alrighty? All helpful? All right, now let's take a look at the pictures that will help us. These are the topics now with the picture. The first section, we know, was Karma Yoga is equal to, but what? Better. And it goes from 1 to 6. The important picture here is, you see, who do you see in the picture? You see Lord Chaitanya, and who else? Yes, you see a Mayavadi sannyasi, Prakashananda, right? Right. Prabhupada makes a brilliant purport here as to why Mayavadi sannyas is not as beneficial as Vaishnava sannyas. Because this emphasizes the goal of this chapter. Why is Karma Yoga? And you'll get a brilliant comparison. We have slides to help you on that. Next. What do you see in the picture now? A lotus. And what was this? How do I perform Karma Yoga, right? In this section, the goal is to realize my Atma, myself. How do I do that? Like a lotus, I act in this world with detachment of the activity, and I give the results to Krishna. I'm even detached from the activity. Like the lotus, he's in the water, but he's not affected. He's above the water, and even if you put water on it, it falls off. So this is the point of the second part, how to act. Okay, let's see what's the point of the third one. Next slide. Now we see the two famous painting, two birds in the tree. One bird is who? It's Atma Paramatma, Super Soul and the soul. If the soul turns to Super Soul, he is happy. If he turns away, what does he get? Suffering. You see the picture? So much suffering. You see the lady there, and she's being attacked. That's what you get in the material world. So one has to realize, Super Soul, I better turn to him if I want a peaceful life. So topic 3 is the relationship between Super Soul, soul, and nature, material nature. Okay, our next one. Topic 4. Liberation through doing what? Focusing the consciousness on what? The Super Soul. And you'll see this section gives you the symptoms of a person who's done that. These are the symptoms of a person who's done that. And you'll see it elevates gradually up into the point of liberation and Brahma Bhuta. This is such an elevated chapter. It takes you up to Brahma Bhuta, which is the beginning of bhakti. Bhakti doesn't start where we are. We're practicing in the material tabernacle. Bhakti begins at Brahma Bhuta. Okay? Everybody helpful? All right. Now we're very quickly going to go to key slides, key verses, okay? Again, we're in the Bhagavad-Gita, and we'll do a little different activity. We're just going to read these. We'll read them together. Whenever I stop, you loudly speak, okay? Remember, there was 1. You see the numbers here? Number 29 has 2 stars. You see it? You have that chart also. And the others have 1. 2 stars mean it's memory verse, and 1 star means thematic. And we see in the first section, look how many. Number 2, 3, 5, and 6. 4 out of those 11 are coming from the first 6 slokas. That means that section's very important. Krishna consciousness is a better process than trying to renounce work. It won't work. Okay? And we'll find out why. And then 13 and 14 and 15, those are all coming from the relationship of the soul, super soul, and nature. And then in the last section, we get 18. That's the cover picture, the sage. And then 22, 23, and 24. And those emphasize how you avoid material happiness, because it's not happy. And you go for spiritual happiness, which is unlimited. Everybody has a right to be happy, because by the nature, the soul is pleasure-seeking. It's your prerogative. You're just looking in the wrong place. If you look in the right place, it's unlimited. If you look in the wrong place, the misery is unlimited. And the last sloka is the peace formula. And the thing in the peace formula is that everybody wants happiness and he wants peace, but he doesn't know how to go about it. So that's such a critical sloka. That's the key memory one. Krishna is the enjoyer, Krishna is the controller. We want to be enjoyers, we want to be controllers, and that's why we're here. As soon as you give that up, and he's also your best friend. The person next to you may be a nice friend, but how long is that person with you? Super soul has been with you since time immemorial. Even if you're a worm, if you're a pig in stool, or if you're Brahma. Who could be a better friend? Okay? So those are the ones. Now let's go through them together, just so you get the highlights of this chapter. All right, first sloka. The personality of Godhead replied, the renunciation of work and work in are both good for, but of the two, work and devotional service is than renunciation of work. It's better, right? Next one. Now, what's renounced mean? Because we want to know, what does renounced mean? I put on orange cloth and I carry a danda? No, it doesn't mean that. It's external dress, but no guarantee. One who neither hates nor desires the fruits of his is known to be always, I don't like or dislike something. That's hard. That's hard when you're in the material sphere. Such a person free from all, very hard, easily overcomes material and is completely, that's the formula for being liberated. I don't see duality anymore. Material life means duality. Good and bad, happy, distress, man, woman, rich. That's going to keep you here. O mighty armed Arjuna. Next one. Now you know what renounce means. I'm beyond duality. That's what renunciation. It doesn't mean I've got an orange thing and a dunda, and it doesn't mean that, no. One who knows that, right, the position reached by means of analytical study and also can also be attained by devotional service, and who therefore sees analytical study and devotional service to be on the same, sees things as they are. Now, Prabhupada defines analytical study to be Sankhya philosophy, and devotional service to be Krishna consciousness. He makes it simple for us, Sankhya and Krishna consciousness. Now, we've been told they're equal, but one is better. This sloka tells us how they're equal. The next sloka tells us why one is better, okay? This shows the similarity. The next one shows the difference. Okay, let's see sloka 6. Supreme. Now, why is one better? Merely renouncing all activities, yet not engaging in the devotional service of the cannot make one can't make you happy. It's dry. But a thoughtful person engaged in devotional service can achieve the supreme without quickly. And Prabhupada explained this one brilliantly. He said, with Gyan, it's like telling a person, when you leave this room, you give up material world. When you go to the doorway, you can't come back. But you're also not allowed to go out. What will you try to do? You'll try to come back in. And that's why the sannyasis who go to the Brahman, they fall back down. You have to have superior engagement because the soul is active and it seeks happiness. And you will think, oh, I should have never left my wife. I'm miserable. You will regret. You have to have a higher alternative. So try it. Go to the doorway. Somebody says, you can't come in, but you can't go out. You're stuck. That's what Brahman is. It's in between. It's the doorway. No way, it won't work. It's like the airplane in the sky. He's not allowed to come back down, and he's not allowed to go high. So he's going to fly forever? No, you can't. You have to either go up or come down. So that's why it's dangerous. Everybody understand the point? You're active by nature as a soul. You're happy, seeking as a soul. You're entitled to it. And when something is happy, does the time go fast? Yes, you go quickly. When something's boring, oh, what's happened with it? So that's why he says without delay. Okay? Very good. Next sloka. The city. This is what we are. The figurative city. This is us. 9 gates. When the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all, this is the secret to this chapter, mentally renounces all actions. I'm not doing it. Try that. Try it. Try to do something and say, I'm not doing it. This is very elevated. He resides happily in the city of 9, the material, neither working nor causing work to be. Anybody on that platform here? I shared with many friends, I felt ashamed to present this chapter because I don't have this realization. I can talk about it, I can understand it, but I don't do it. This is very elevated. And we've got the little fellow there, he's a puppet. And he has the 9 gates, the 2 eyes, 2 ears, the 9 holes, the 2 nostrils, the mouth. Okay? We're going to find out though how to do this. Next slide, embodied. But the next sloka, the embodied spirit, master of the city of his body, does not create activities, nor does he induce people to, nor does he create the fruits of. All this is enacted by what? The modes of nature. So here's the little guy down here. He's got a master who's nasty, and the master says, I've got a worker who's lazy, and they hate each other. But both of them are under control of what? The modes. When they fall from the transcendental position, they're forced to think that the guy next to me is my enemy. That's why there's no peace or happiness here. You see in duality. But you're stuck too. And Paramatma's neutral. He's operating both the puppets. He's operating the puppet that's giving you a hard time. So there's no result. There's no answer here. You've got to get out of this. So you have to rise above the modes. Next. And Krishna, what does he play? What's his part here? Does he take responsibility for this? No. Nor does the Supreme Lord what? Assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge. They think Krishna's to blame, my mom is to blame, my son is to blame, my neighbor's to blame. No. We desired the situation we're put into, we have to suffer it. The only way out is Krishna consciousness. Next. This is the sage. He's humble. He's humble because he's realized his self. And he knows Paramatma is in everybody. So he treats everybody, from that understanding. The humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater, outcast. So the whole spectrum. But this is immaterial to him because this is in the modes. He's above the modes. He doesn't care for them. He's transcendental. Next. Wise. An intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery, which are due to contact with the material. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have and so the wise man does not, even if it's temporarily pleasurable, it has to end. Your body's limited. How many ice cream cones can you eat? And if it's vikarmic, the reactions are going to come. It's a losing battle. So a wise man doesn't, I don't want it. I don't want it. Next. Before giving up the body, this is for us, before we have to die, this is what we should do. And this is Dhruva. He gave up his desire for a kingdom. He even gave up his anger with his stepmother. Before giving up this present body, if one is able to what? Tolerate. That's why we're told, tolerate duality. Because if you don't tolerate it, you're going to get trapped further. Tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of what? Desire. And anger. He desired a kingdom and he was angry with his stepmother. He gave it up. He's well situated, and what is the result? You'll be happy. Everybody want to be happy, of course, in this world. Next. Mystic. Who's a mystic? This is Haridas Thakur. One whose happiness is within, who is active and who rejoices within, and whose aim is inward, is actually the perfect mystic. His happiness is coming from here, not outside. Outside brings you misery, inside brings you, it's a journey inward. He is liberated in the Supreme. Who's carrying him? Lord Chaitanya. And he attains what? He attains the Supreme. Okay? So we're going to look at a few little film clips, and tomorrow, if you're able to join us, we're going to go through the slokas with the purports. So you can see the verses and that. And we just have they're only 2 minutes, and they emphasize, the first ones emphasize the engagement by the modes and how we should actually try to rise above them. Because all of us, as long as we have a body, and we think to some degree we're the body, we're still conditioned. All right? You ready? So now we have to have our Giridhara here holding up the mic. Otherwise, people can't hear the track. They're very short. Each one is 2 minutes. They're both coming from Bhaktivedanta Institute. And this is how the scientists explain what we're trying to understand in chapter 5. That's why I combined them. How do the scientists explain, especially to a person who doesn't understand Krishna consciousness, how does he explain how he's entrapped? And how the material body, as a subtle body, that connects the soul with matter and convinces the soul he's matter, not spirit. Very, very, very brilliantly how they do it. Okay, everybody ready now? This first part, I love the way it starts. They show strings.
3 qualities of material nature. Life in this this world is very diverse due to the presence of the three qualities of material nature, which in the Vedas are called gunas. Gunas are the invisible energy threads that bind or condition the living entity by a certain type of body and psyche. There are three gunas or modes in total: goodness, passion, and ignorance. The combination of these modes in different proportions generates a great variety of events, tastes, and moods. The three modes influence the entire creation, from microcosmos to macrocosmos.
The ropes can be gold, the ropes can be silver, the ropes can be iron, but they're ropes. And it's explained in the Bhagavad-Gita that up in the higher planets, even the sages, the subtle desires, they have subtle, fine golden threads that they're binding. As long as we have a body, it was created by combinations of those ropes. Do you understand? I thought it was brilliant the way they showed those strings. Even the flowers and trees and everything is nothing more than a manifestation of three ropes in combination. So we have bodies that are that. That psychophysiological connection has to be transcended. Has to be. Okay, next little clip.
In its pure form, these gunas are found very rarely. In most cases, these modes are mixed in different proportions and provide a variety of human natures. These modes are dynamic, and that's why a person can change, deliberately increasing an influence of different modes in his life. Sometimes a person degrades, and sometimes, taking advantage of knowledge, willpower, and freedom of choice, he rises to a qualitatively higher level of life. These three gunas, or forces of nature, give rise to three main states of consciousness, which a living entity may remain in.
This is very important. Watch this carefully.
Under the influence of ignorance, consciousness manifests a condition called sleep without dreams. It means that a person is not aware of his existence. A human may remain only a short period of time in such a state. Only the simplest living organisms can live in this state for a long time. Under the influence of the mode of passion, consciousness manifests a condition called sleep with dreaming. It means that we dream that we are someone else than we are in reality. This state of consciousness corresponds to the position of most people. They are eternal souls, but under the influence of the mode of passion, it seems to them that they are temporary bodies. Mistaking oneself with the body is the same as to confuse oneself with a suit one wears or a car one drives. Under the influence of the mode of goodness, consciousness is in a state of awakening. In this state, we begin to understand that we are something more than just a biological machine. At this level, a person clearly sees the difference between a soul and a body and begins to seek spiritual knowledge and the path of spiritual development. However, even this state of awakening is not the highest, because if we wake up but don't get up, we can easily fall asleep again. Thus, the Vedas say that the purpose of human life is the elevation of consciousness over all three modes, including the mode of goodness.
Very important. We are experiencing now this stage of consciousness. There are 4 stages. We are experiencing the stage of day. This is a day dream. At night, we have a night dream. Our present existence is daydreaming. We still do not know who we are. But when you come to the mode of goodness, you come to the understanding that there's a distinction between the soul and matter. That is why the mode of goodness is critical. In the modes of passion and ignorance, they can't understand that. But do we stop there? No. You have to keep elevating. And you saw how knowledge, willpower, and choice, the human form of life, gives you the choice to elevate to the fourth stage, which is called Turiya. The fourth state of consciousness, which is above the three modes. At that platform, you first identify with yourself, and you see Krishna.
Rules of relationships we are entangled in the traps of karma which we have created. Exhausting his old karma, a person immediately creates a new one, which forces him to get more and more new material bodies. The animals are almost devoid of free will, and thus they only experience the old karma, gradually rising again to the human form of life to regain the freedom of choice. The soul in the animal body does not create a new karma, otherwise it would be forever deprived of the chance to rise above. Thus, the Vedas say that the objective purpose of human life is to achieve a fourth state of consciousness above the three modes of nature. It is pure spiritual consciousness which allows to fulfill the three requirements of the soul: eternity, knowledge, and bliss. This level is achieved due to the fact that having risen to the mode of goodness, a person does not stop at the proper philosophical understanding of life, but begins to engage in practical spiritual activities, meditation, prayer, and service to God. If a person lives in the mode of goodness, he gets the maximum benefit from the material life, since among all material qualities, the mode of goodness is the highest, as well as an accurate perspective of spiritual development. Therefore, this way of life can be called the path of progress. If a person chooses for himself the standard of living in the modes of passion or ignorance, then he cannot get a high quality of life, even at the material level, and the prospect of spiritual development for him is closed. Just as in ignorance and passion, a person is not able to understand the deep spiritual philosophy and cannot engage in spiritual practice. Therefore, it can be called the path of degradation.
So the choice is ours. Path of elevation and the path of degradation. Devotees have definitely chosen the path of elevation. But the important thing to understand in this fifth chapter is that we need to take advantage of knowledge that will elevate us beyond these three modes. As you saw in the yoga ladder, until you come to transcendence, you're still to some degree or other conditioned, which means you may have to continue taking bodies. So it's very important, this chapter. Okay, are there any questions before we conclude? By the way, I did want to say, we've given this picture, we want to offer special thanks to Srila Rupa Goswami. This is Disappearance Day, and why he is so important to us, not only because we're Rupanugas, but because in particular in this chapter, he has given us the correct philosophical understanding of Yukta Vairagya, the principle of dovetailing. When we're in the material tabernacle, we have to be able to act with the present conditions, the body. And the only way to do that is to dovetail our activities in Krishna consciousness. So it is Rupa Goswami who has given us that principle. It is Prabhupada who's given us the structure by which we can engage in spiritual activities in the material domain. Without that, we would have no hope. So we are especially indebted to Srila Rupa Goswami. And many of his important slokas, also the one about one is liberated. He's liberated with his mind, his words, and his actions. They're all devoted to the Supreme. And the other one is that the renunciate, who renounces the world, his renunciation is falgu, it's incomplete. The renunciation, according to Rupa Goswami, he's engaging everything because everything belongs to Krishna. Everything should be engaged in his service. So that is the definition of renunciation, his definition of also yukta vairagya, proper use of everything in the service of Krishna. So we thank Srila Rupa Goswami, and also it was he who appeared before Prabhupada. And I spoke with Gargamuni 2 days ago and asked him where the quote was that Rupa Goswami told him to go to the West. And he looked, and I looked too. I came close, I found some other quotes, but he wrote it down, and apparently he had told Parisori in a conversation that Rupa Goswami appeared to him when he was in Radha Damodar, and Rupa Goswami said, "All right, you've got the books, you're ready, go." So it was because of that final order. Prabhupada knew always from his Guru Maharaj he had to do it, but it was Rupa Goswami who told him, "You've got the books, take them, get ready, go." So we thank both of them, because otherwise, without their mercy, none of us would have any. Thank you for coming, and please do take some prasad. Tomorrow we will be going through the slokas with the purport slides. Okay?
Hare Krishna. Can I ask one thing?
Yes.
Can I just
Yeah, Mike, go ahead.